Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Michelle Saeed, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we're thrilled to have Chuck Crumpton, the founder and managing director of Bull Street Mergers, joining us. With over 30 years of experience in business growth and M&A, including roles at MedPoint and Johnson, Chuck founded Bull Street Mergers in Charleston, South Carolina, to help business owners build and sell remarkable companies, achieving valuation multiples soaring from 3.5 to over 7 for over 60,000 companies. We'll explore his founding story, how Bull Street is reshaping M&A advisory, and his vision for scaling his boutique firm. So with that being said, let's dive in. Chuck, welcome to Founders Future.
Michelle, so good to be with you today.
Absolutely. Let's kick things off for our listeners. Chuck, take us back to the beginning. What specific problem within the M&A or business growth landscape, maybe around maximizing business value or navigating sales, inspired you to start Bull Street Mergers?
Sure. Great question. It goes back, I won't go back to the second grade, right? Because that would be too far back. But I went through two of my own exits, one in the late 90s, another one in July of 2020. During the height of COVID, if everybody remembers those dark and scary days. Sold my healthcare practice, and it was a great exit. We had wonderful partners, great relationships around the world, and it was really a culminating moment for me. Not only going through the build, I started that company in the tool shed of my garage 20 years earlier. But going through all the sacrifices, all the dark and lonely days of being an entrepreneur, I was telling someone recently, I think my first 4 years, I did everything. I sold the customer, billed the customer, provided the work, a jack of all trades. But it taught me a lot about starting a business. And it also really shed a lot of light on sometimes the loneliness of being a founder, being an entrepreneur, but it turned out very successful, had a great exit. When I left that business, we had over 250 folks from 1 to 250. And I think the company now has probably over 300 people. So they continue to grow. But when I sold the business, took a little time off, we traded houses, got out of the COVID mindset, and it dawned on me that inside of M&A, mergers and acquisitions, particularly the lower middle markets, so 50 million and below, I just saw a lot of business owners, many of my friends, that were struggling with some of those early struggles that I went through building my healthcare company. And I still had some juice left in the tank. I'm no young whippersnapper anymore. I had juice left in the tank, and I really felt like I could bring some value to the M&A industry. Along the way, I learned how to spell M&A, so it made life easier. But it was really, when I started Bull Street, it was really designed to be what I refer to as disruptive M&A. In other words, I wanted to shake up the industry. M&A as a whole, in general, and this is not disparaging, but the M&A industry is largely transactional. In other words, if you're ready to go to market, we get your financials, we build a confidential SIM, we market it, right? It goes to the market, some buyer comes along, hopefully creates a win-win deal between the buyer and the seller. So that's real transactional. A lot of numbers in boxes, due diligence, letter of intent, getting financials, organizing financials, articulating financials. But I felt like there needed to be something different, a different dimension to the M&A industry. So we sought out when we started Bull Street 5 years ago was really to do it in a disruptive manner and to do it both transactional. You have to put little numbers in little boxes. We all get that. But to also do it very relational. And what I mean by that is sellers will sell for a particular reason. Sometimes it's an external influence. They're going through a death in the family, divorce, or whatever. Sometimes they're just tired and they're ready to move on to the next chapter. But we wanted to bring a level of relational expertise to the transactional dynamic. So it would become a better experience. And we found by doing that, we were able to get better offers from the buyers because not only do we know our seller, of course, because we were representing them, but we also got to know the buyers and what was important to them. So it made for a much healthier deal because in that process, you're negotiating price and terms, and the terms really are the magic behind a deal being good. I tell my sellers all the time, you're going to love me or hate me in 5 years based on the terms that I negotiate. So by getting to know the people better, having an understanding of their goals and their exit strategy and their plans and their future plans, we were able to build a much more disruptive model, much more relational model. And that's proven itself out over the last 5 years because we've been able to bring together great buyers and great sellers for great deals.
Love that. No, I love the way that you really have showed the way the offer has evolved since you started valuation services, confidential marketing. Let's get into the nuts and bolts for the
Sure.
present for our listeners and even some potential clients that are tuning in. Walk us through how Bull Street Mergers generates revenue today. What's the core offering at the present time? Is it sell-side advisory from what we know or the Business Owners Forum? How do you structure what you do for your clients, such as businesses with $2 to even $50 million in revenue?
Yeah. Really good question. Part of this disruptive mentality, shaking things up, making things better, hopefully. The old adage, if it's not broken, break it so it can be better, right? Part of what we do, 80% of companies that have some desire to sell, right? A business owner raises their hand and say, I want to exit for whatever reason, positive or negative. Most of them are just not ready to sell. So part of the value equation that we started this disruptive company with is to look at each deal and knowing that 80% are not ready to go to market. So the 80% that are not ready to go to market, we build them up. And we have a proven methodology over 20 years where we can take them through a process where we look at literally every single thing in their business, all 8 drivers of their company infrastructure, financials, operations, sales, marketing, everything. And then we chip away at making each one of those components better. So when they do go to market, whether it's 6 months or 6 years, they come to the market with a much more valuable business. And that's where we have seen those multiples, as you referenced early. We've seen those multiples more than double. And when you double your multiples, it has dramatic impact on the cash that you take home when you go through the transaction. So we spend a lot of time, which is why we created the Strategic Advisory Forum, is to take those business owners through this process of just making them bigger, better, healthier. So when they do go to market, when they're ready to go to market, they get the highest multiples. They get much more of a much better deal because they're healthier in all aspects of their business.
Building on this growth, how are you currently acquiring customers right now? What channels, whether it's like LinkedIn, your Charleston network, or referrals, what's been the most effective for getting in front of your audience and really landing the right ICP for M&A services?
Sure. We do a lot of social media. As a matter of fact, we just hired a chief marketing officer who is largely responsible for just articulating that message, right? The branding, the messaging to make it clear, tight, concise. We use every available resource. We're expanding our social media, as a matter of fact, to include all the social media channels. Someone asked me recently, just as a sidebar, are you guys using TikTok? Absolutely. If there is a business owner that's looking or reviewing TikTok, we want to tap in. Maybe there are 3 in the world. I'm
Mm.
sure a lot more, but we're looking at every available tool to get the message out. LinkedIn is a core service that we use, of course, because it has, I think, now over 6 million or so business owners that part of LinkedIn. So that's a real important part of our strategy. We just got a deal this morning, as a matter of fact, as a direct result of one of our referral sources. We are very fortunate to get a lot of referrals because people like and trust us. And we
Mhm.
do a lot of networking events. Part of my personal strategy, particularly with the forum, is to build, we have a series of mastermind groups that we have deployed in the Carolinas and Georgia. We serve business owners around the US and we broker a lot of those deals between Chicago, Dallas, Charleston, New York, Miami, a lot on the sort of the eastern seaboard. But on our the build part of what we do, we serve those companies nationwide. But we do a lot of on-site workshop, roll up your sleeves, let's get in and dig this, turn over every rock, we call it. That's part of our mastermind strategy. And that works really well because it allows those business owners to network with each other. The old adage, iron sharpens iron. It's a really big, because I've been doing this for a long time and I'm good at what I do. Our team is great, but we don't have all the answers. But what we can do, our mission is to fill the room with subject matter experts, people that know what they're doing, and we can answer virtually any question on business from any business owner in the world.
Absolutely. I think that was such a great point that you brought up. Even beyond the expertise that you offer, you're really creating a community and being that liaison by getting those experts in the room. And I think that's very telling and it stands out as authentic, right? From a thought leadership perspective, whenever someone does approach you and it's you being candid and transparent, that it's like, hey, I can give you some of these answers, but I want to bring you inside to a wealth of knowledge and expertise, right? And even have you be a contributor. So I love the fact that you're incorporating that in your offerings and really just beyond just the initial acquisition. Now, on the topic of sales, what strategies have been the most effective in converting some of these interactions and leads into long-term clients and partnerships? Are you leveraging some of your thought leadership partnerships? Do you have a team? Are you doing this on your own as like a solo operation? What does all of that look like right now?
Yeah, so we believe philosophically that it takes a village to raise a deal. One of our former politicians years ago said it takes a village to raise a child. I think it takes a village to raise a deal. So again, we lean very heavily on all of our referral partners, all of our resources. Some of those are financial resources, CPAs, bookkeepers, corporate attorneys, financial wealth managers. All of those folks make up an army of value, right? And so we work very closely with the team. There's a team of advisors that touch every business owner.
Mm.
And that's external, right? Because these folks are providing value back, whether it's tax mitigation, whether it's looking at financials to make sure they're healthy. What are you going to do with the $10 million that we provide you at closing? How are you going to manage that and build wealth off of that? How are we going to wrap the deal up so we mitigate future liabilities for our business owner? All of those are external relationships that we look for and cultivate. We're passionate about those partners that we cultivate those relationships with every day. And then we rely on our external partners, all of those that I mentioned and others, to provide us with a lot of referrals, a lot of leads, open up a lot of doors. I had a lunch meeting last Thursday with a financial advisor who's one of our partners, and he actually brought his client to the lunch and across the table said, Chuck is the man, his team, they're the best. You need to do business. This morning at 10 o'clock, they signed our engagement letter and we're going to take them to market. That's an example of an external partner that's a sales channel for us. Of course, all of our people, we hire people that share the same values that we have, which is let's treat people with extreme integrity. Let's do it the right way. Let's have attention to detail. Let's be buttoned up and professional, yet personal and caring, whether it's taking one of my clients hunting or having a nice steak and wine or whatever, but we get to know them. So to answer your question, without beating the horse to glue, we also train our people, even our analysts. We have a great team of analysts that all they do are they put little numbers in little boxes to make the numbers work and to make the magic happen and to articulate the value of that client. But at the same time, we're training them internally to make sure that we are not only serving that client, but we're also serving the referrals that will come from our clients. So we can take our financial analysts, who are typically by DNA not salespeople, and they become sales agents, so to speak, internal sales agents to reach a broader community, build deeper relationships. And when people get to know us, they tend to like and to trust us. And we want to be there, frankly, we want to be their go-to source when they do go to market, or when they're playing golf with one of their buddies who says, I'm thinking about selling, you need to call Chuck and his team.
Love that. I love the fact that beyond just the fulfillment, you do have the experts having these conversations and not just yourself. The manner in which you've trained them, from what it sounds like, you've pretty much cracked the code on the acquisition side and usually in the strategies as well with leveraging referrals. Now, the growth and the momentum is incredible from, what it sounds like. You've helped over 60,000 companies boost valuations. But if there was more for our listeners and entrepreneurs that are just finding their footing right now in their founding journey, if there was like one bottleneck that stood out, what would it be? Is it even attracting like the right types of referrals, scaling on the fulfillment side, scaling on the sales side? What are you most focused on solving right now to keep this momentum going?
For Bull Street, we were actually just having this conversation yesterday, and I think it's the plight of most small businesses in America, right? Small, medium-sized businesses. Again, we define that market as 50 million and below in transactional value. It really comes down to people and tools. You've got to have the right people. We can hire people all day long that can put little numbers in little boxes. But if those people are not representing the values that we have at Bull Street and the Strategic Advisory Forum, if they're not representing who we are, our DNA, our integrity, the way we do business, which is very professional and very personal, if we're not finding the right people, it's going to affect our trajectory. We've had well over 20 companies recently come to Bull Street, come to the Strategic Advisory Forum to be part of our growth because, again, they like and they trust us, and we are highly competent and highly caring. But if we're not attracting the right people to handle that influx of business, and we're probably one of the largest growing firms, fastest growing firms in the Southeast because we're doing it the right way. But we've got to have the people to make sure we're fulfilling every aspect of that integrity that we owe our client. The second thing, and I think this is probably very indicative for most business owners, whether they're in M&A, software, healthcare, HVAC, plumbing, regardless, right, of the industry, I think a lot of business owners struggle with tools. So we always have a bottleneck of people, finding the right people, training the right people, making sure they are long-termers for us because we want the continuity of that relationship, but also finding the tools that make the engine work. If you don't put the right oil in, the car is going to die. If we're not using the right tools, and the tools can be the right CRM, the right software platforms, sometimes I lose count. I certainly lose count of how many we look at. Sometimes I lose count of how many we actually have. We have a lot of software platforms. And it takes from the time that you say, as a business owner, whether it's Bull Street or a healthcare company or whatever the firm is, from the time that you say, you know what, I think we need this for our growth, from the time that you have that realization, to the time that it's implemented and your folks are trained on it, can be weeks and months. And it can also slow down the process of growth. We need, and I'm not a software guy, right? Sometimes I think software platforms are a four-letter word. I I can imagine spending my weekend looking at yet another software platform. But we need those partners for our business, but finding the right ones, implementing the right ones, training on the right ones, and deploying what they do best can be difficult, and it can be a bottleneck, honestly.
Yeah, no, that's incredibly important with the stage you're at where, you need predictability and sustainable revenue growth and having the right processes and like workflows in place without things being all over the place. Very relatable. And I know some of our listeners tuning in, they're probably thinking the same thing as well as they're refining their fulfillment and scale of delivery. Now, with everything you've accomplished, like driving valuation multiples over seven figures, like what's top of mind right now for growing Bull Street over the next 6 to 12 months? What does that runway look like for you this year?
We do a lot of one of our core philosophies in our business development. Again, it all relates back to the foundation of relationships is we do a lot of what I call LA, which is listen, ask, listen, ask, listen, ask. Part of any new relationship that we bring on, we want to listen to what the market is saying. Right now, we are neck deep into tariff talk. That's
Mm,
affecting the client we just signed this morning is affected by tariffs because of their supply chain and the reliance on supply chain. So we need to listen to where the market is. We also need to listen to where our customers are. And then that forms a paradigm on how we interface with that customer. And it also helps us interface with the prospect.
mm,
Frankly, there are some businesses that we don't want to deal with. There's some business owners that we choose to fire or not allow them to be part of our family because they're just going to be too difficult. But it all starts with a conversation. And we take what I call a friendly aggressive approach. Tell me what you need, tell me what you want, and I'll tell you very quickly if we can get you there because we are not the firm. And for the folks that are listening, I would recommend whatever they do in their life, be selective and use the powerful word no. Some
mm.
customers are really not deserving of the quality that we give them. And I would say that to every business owner that's listening. Evaluate the influx of activity to make sure you're bringing on the right customer because you can replace a lot of things. It's hard to replace back to the people, the really good people that are handling these customers. And if we bring on less than quality customers, it affects the entire organization.
No, absolutely. It goes both ways, right? You want the partnerships to be invested in you as much as you're invested in them, and that's what breeds
Absolutely.
and that growth and mutual alignment, right? So that there is success. So let's get a bit hypothetical here. I love the conversation and your passion for helping business owners and really get them to where they want to be, right, before they hit GTM. If you had a genie in the room, you rubbed the lamp, and now you have all these unlimited resources, what would you implement immediately to accelerate Bull Street's growth over the next year?
I think we need to do a better job we have our core philosophy is fantastic. Our core product, the way we do what we do, fantastic. Nobody does it better. I think we can do a better job at articulating that message. In other
Mm,
words, we need to tell more people about our mission. We do a good job. We have a good outreach. We have a good business development team. We have good messaging, but we need to do a better job because more people need to know that we're disruptive. More people
mm,
need to know that we are kicking against the bricks to make this industry better. And we need to
mm,
do a better job at getting that out. And we're looking at, as we've grown, I believe in frugality. So we run our budgets very tightly and we're careful about our expenses and what we allocate to sales and marketing and that type of thing. But we need to do a better job because we've got a great message. It's like having a fantastic car that's clean and tires are polished, it runs great, looks good, but you have no gas in the car, you can't drive the car down the road. So we have a wonderful machine, a great methodology, fantastic people, a great product that we're bringing to the market. We need to do a better job at articulating, getting that message out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's all about streamlining those processes on the acquisition side. How can we start to create better visibility? And from what it sounds like, you have great IP and a great positioning, right? Very different from some of the other direct competitors. Hopefully, as you start to build a lot more processes and scale your team, it does solve for itself. Now that we're in the lightning round, one last question
Sure.
for listeners, entrepreneurs, and founders that are looking to follow in your footsteps. What's one tool, maybe like an M&A tactic or a networking trick that's been a game changer for you really building Bull Street?
I think the key, it's maybe tactic is the right word. Maybe tactic and strategy combined as a descriptor. I think the key, and again, we do our business development a lot of different ways. We have a head of business development that does a lot of the old fashioned email, cold calling, getting the word out, knocking on doors.
Mm.
I'm a big believer in just networking, looking people. I spent 4.5 hours Tuesday evening with a couple who I think soon will be selling their $16 million business. And that was a 4.5 hour wine and steak endeavor,
Mm.
right? And 3.5 hours into that 4 hour meeting, I looked at the business owner and I said, let's talk man to man, heart to
Mm.
heart, eye to eye for a moment. Are you ready to go? And that was a big question. And he became very emotional as he answered that question. I believe as we grow our businesses, whether it's Bull Street or ABC company in America, I think the key is combining every aspect, using every tool in your toolbox to get the message out, whether it's the traditional cold calling, email processing, typical traditional outreach, or sitting at a 4 hour dinner, or a networking event, or being involved in the community. I think all of those are critical to building a business because at the end of the day, whether that cold call leads to a relationship in Texas or the dinner leads to a relationship in Charleston, it all comes back to, do we have a clear message? Are we articulating that message? Are we using our people to further that message? And are we using every tool available to be better at the messaging and getting the word out?
Mm. Very well said. Now, we're really just amazed by the growth and the message that you have for really building businesses and really a passion for truly getting them to their true potential before they can actually go to market. That on that note, that wraps up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. Chuck, thank you so much for sharing your remarkable journey with us today. Evidently, your roots in business growth and really just founding Bull Street Mergers and building the team you have today. We're excited to follow this journey along over the next few months. You're really helping owners sell remarkable companies at premium valuations. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find some more resources and insights at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their growth through trained appointment setters and world-class sales systems. Until then, keep climbing, and we'll see you all on the next one.